Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with JYSK. I'm very excited to be hosting today's webinar. We'll be welcoming Erdem Emin Achai, who is the head of advanced analytics at JYSK. I think we're very lucky to have him today because I think he's a great example of a leader who's practicing great data best practices. Him and his team have deployed over 40 projects that end users across his organization are using regularly. And his team has also deployed over 12 data apps. So we're very much looking forward to that presentation. But before we get into that, I'd like to cover a couple housekeeping slides. So first, please use the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, where in the world you're joining us from. You're also welcome to give kudos or give feedback throughout the presentation. Also, please use the Q&A tab. We're going to reserve some time at the end of the presentation today to answer some of these questions. So we have a team working behind the scenes, fielding the questions. I'll try to ask as many of them as I can in the time that we have left. And anything that isn't answered, we'll follow up with answers to after the webinar. Now, I know that sometimes people can get disconnected. There's a couple options for you to try to fix the streaming issue. You can try using a different browser. So we recommend Chrome or Firefox. You can try refreshing your browser. Use a cable internet connection if that's available to you. Check your cookie settings. Try private browser mode. And if at any time you lose the connection or you lose the tab, you can always go back through the link that we sent you in your email. And once you get to that home page, just click Stage and you'll get back to the streaming here. So now I'd like to briefly introduce Erdem, who will be our speaker today. Hello,
Hi, all.
Erdem.
Hi.
So could you please introduce yourself and give a little bit of your background?
Yes. Hi, all. My name is Erdem Emin Achai. I am head of advanced analytics at JYSK, which is an international based in Denmark furnishing retailer. And I have been working at JYSK for 6.5 years. First 3 years, I was pricing manager, and last 3 years, I am head of advanced analytics. And originally, I'm from Turkey, have been living in Denmark for 9 years. And looking forward to present what we have been doing with Knime.
Thanks so much, Erdem. So we're going to welcome you back in a couple of minutes after we do a brief intro, but very much looking forward to your presentation. Okay, so just so everybody knows what the agenda is for today, we like to start these webinars with a quick introduction to Knime. This helps give some context for the upcoming presentation. We know that typically about 50% of people joining these webinars are completely new to our products. So I'll keep it brief, but I'll do a 10-minute intro to the Knime products and the company. After that, Erdem will take the stage and he'll give his presentation on enabling data-driven decisioning across his organization. And then we'll leave whatever time is left over for the Q&A. And in the Q&A, you guys are welcome to ask any questions of Erdem. I'll make sure to get through as many as I can. I'll also welcome up Alex Filbrun from the Knime team, who will help answer any Knime-related technical questions if people have them. And I'll be there as host. So let's get started. Knime as a product exists to help teams build and productionize data science solutions. For data teams specifically, it helps in 3 main ways. So it helps teams increase the efficiency with which they collaborate between disciplines. It helps teams take their analytic solutions and be able to independently productionize them without too much involvement from IT. So make those solutions available as data apps or as REST APIs, or in some cases, even automated reports that go out to different teams. And third, helps those teams upskill others in their organization. So that might be within their team, or even more importantly, it might be people that sit in business units. And what this results in is that more people are able to make sense of data across the organization. And so the impact of the data that the enterprise has scales. So first, I wanted to kind of set the scene with what's going on in the industry. I stumbled upon this quote, and I think it really well summarizes what we've seen when we talk to businesses. So I'll give you guys just 5 seconds to read this. So what's going on is that there's this conflict of priority for data teams. On the one hand, they're expected to deliver near-term value, so be able to answer questions that business units have as quickly as possible. But at the same time, they're expected to kind of lay the groundwork to be able to answer future questions with as much agility as possible and answer as many questions for as many different use cases as possible. And all of this is happening in an evolving landscape. And this is something that we see all the time. So when we talk to companies, they tell us usually that they're going for one of two things. They're either building these analytical centers of excellence that have data experts working for them, and they're responsible for building a platform or a system in which people can access data quickly and make sense of data quickly in the long term. On the other hand, they want to enable these business and domain experts to be able to answer their critical business questions with as much agility as possible. So they want people like marketers or salespeople to be able to ask a question and within a day or a week, not within a month or a year, be able to get the answer to that question. And the faster they get the answers to those questions, the more value that those answers have. The problem that a lot of data leaders face is that no matter which of these two things they're focusing on, one of them often comes at the cost of the other. So they're either creating a platform for long-term that creates long-term data value, or they're investing in the upskilling of these business users in, let's say, a spreadsheet tool or a BI tool. And this creates sort of like a silo between the two teams, a silo between the data experts that are trying to create this platform and the business experts who need answers as soon as possible. So at Knime, what we did is we created a tool that suits all data workers. And we're able to do this because whether you're a data scientist or a business analyst, the data process is really the same. So you get data out of somewhere, you blend and clean it, you transform it, whether that's doing some basic manipulation in Excel, or you're training and applying a machine learning model, and then you get it out to people. You get the results out to people. So by enabling anyone on either side of the business to use a low-code, no-code platform, that means that all of a sudden you don't have to prioritize building something that lasts by the data team or giving something that gives quick results to the business team. For data teams specifically, that means that anyone on your team, no matter what their background is, they can quickly start building and productionizing their analytics. But at the same time, the low-code, no-code platform does not at all put a ceiling on the kind of analytics that your team can do, because Knime Analytics platform is open. So any of the advanced methods, any of the scripting languages, or the AI ML libraries that your team knows and loves, they can still reach out to them, and they can still use and even bundle some of the Python scripts that they typically write. So for data leaders, that means onboarding is quick and efficient compared to a purely scripting approach. Collaboration between disciplines, so between people who know Python and who don't, for example, is easier and more efficient, and it sets up a team for reuse. So once you build a solution once, you can reuse that same solution or reuse portions of that solution many times, time and time again. And ultimately, this platform, Knime Analytics platform, because it's free and open source, there's practically no friction to adopting it. So anyone in the organization can go to knime.com, download it, and try it for free, and actually use it for free for as long as they need, as they get to know the low-code, no-code approach. So that's sort of on the building side. But as soon as you start wanting to do something or to use analytics in a team environment, for that you would use our commercial product. So Knime Business Hub is what you can use to, first of all, collaborate in a team environment. So you can collaborate by taking your workflows and sharing them across teams or across disciplines. And even more importantly, you can take those workflows and easily deploy them without relying on IT. So you can make that analysis quickly available as a report, as a data app, or as a service. And Erdem's presentation today will focus quite a bit on this part of the product. But once that solution has been built and deployed, you can then in the future share and reuse it over and over again. So just to kind of paint the full picture of how this looks in an organization, I'll give you a quick example so you can see the whole kind of product suite and how it supports a business that is trying to become fully data-driven. So imagine you have these 3 data experts in your organization. One has a Python experience, one is a data wrangler, so maybe they come from Excel and they've worked with macros in the past, and you have a data engineer who maybe has a SQL background. And that data engineer helps the team get data in and out of different systems. As soon as they use Knime Analytics platform, they have a lingua franca, which means they can collaborate and work together efficiently to build and deploy analytics solutions. So all of a sudden, these data experts become a data team. Now, this data team can share their workflows and collaborate on their workflows on Knime Business Hub, and ultimately they can start deploying them and productionizing them. So they can make those analytic solutions available to others in the organization as a data app, as a static report, or as a REST API. So maybe for marketing, they create a return on ad spend data app. Maybe for sales, they create an API that enriches their data in their CRM. And maybe for finance, they create an automated report that automates expense reporting, for example. Again, this is the part of the presentation that Erdem, or the part of the story that Erdem's presentation will be focused on. And this is really a nice way to quickly start taking all those different analytics solutions that you've created or your team has been creating and moving them beyond the pilot stage and actually making them available to different teams throughout the organization. The next step, or like another route that we often see, is that the data team actually takes those workflows that they create for the different teams and they hand over those workflows. So they share them in spaces on Knime Business Hub so that the marketing team or other teams throughout the organization can start reusing them or start tweaking them or start learning from them so that eventually they can do some of their own analysis. So the low-code, no-code nature of the platform means that, yes, you can do all these very sophisticated things, but it also means that you can build basic solutions and hand them over to different departments and have them upskill and eventually learn to do more advanced analytics themselves. And as soon as you do this, you're able to increase data science bandwidth. So the more people in your organization that can do data science, the more people in your organization can benefit from that data science. So eventually these teams, what we've been seeing is eventually these teams start forming their own communities and start actually running the analysis themselves. And of course, that doesn't mean that the data team stops what they're doing, but that means that they're able to focus on the most important challenges. And of course, because Knime Analytics platform is free and open source, you'll find people in the organization download the application and try it for themselves. Whether or not they're using company data, they might be using some data set that they have on their own, but they're able to learn the platform, the low-code, no-code platform, and start moving beyond spreadsheets or beyond the tools that they typically use. So we often see this sort of self-motivated upskilling across the organization. And of course, these teams can create their own communities. And as more people do data science in the organization, more people benefit from that data science in the organization until ultimately the business becomes truly data-driven. So I'll share these slides with you guys afterwards, but this is basically the summary of the Knime commercial business hub capabilities. And I just wanted to cover one more thing, is that we're seeing people adopt this approach across industries. So across retail and insurance and financial services and manufacturing and many, many others. So today you'll hear a great example from Erdem and from retail, but there's many, many others that exist on the website. And we see improvements both on top line and on the bottom line. So whether you're trying to increase revenue or if you're trying to increase efficiency, so be able to do more with less, there are many use cases that for Knime that addresses this. So that's about as quick as a summary of all the products as I could do. But I'd love to welcome back Erdem so we can get into the presentation that all of you guys have been waiting for.
Hi all.
Hello, welcome back. I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you. So I will start giving some introduction to JYSK. First of all, giving the opportunity. Then afterwards, I will talk about how our department came to be. Then I will talk about Knime self-service apps that we have been building. So JYSK is an international furnishing retailer, which is family owned, like it's operating from Denmark, but we have more than 3,000 stores and we employ more than 30,000 colleagues across countries. Our business model, basically, you can say, is buying from suppliers and selling. But of course, along the way, there are lots of other things we do. Obviously, defining the trends, making sure that the goods are transported to our distribution centers, checking the quality, and then making campaigns about these products, and then distributing them to our stores, and making the selling to the customers. Our founder is Lars Larsen. He passed away in 2019, but he was known as tradesman, Köpman in Danish, in Denmark by almost everyone. That's one of the main, what's called DNA parts of JYSK. And the first store was opened in Aarhus, which is still there 43 years ago, and was called JYSK Sengetøjslæger back in the day. It's still family owned, as I mentioned. It's now Jakob Brunsborg, who is the son of Lars Larsen. Now the JYSK is under an umbrella group called Lars Larsen Group, under which there is Lars Larsen Group Retail and Lars Larsen Group Investment. And Lars Larsen Group itself is not only JYSK, but there are lots of other retailers under. Some of them are also internationals like Polya, Ilva, and some of them are only maybe Danish. And there are also some other smaller investments which are not retail, but there are lots of different industries also within Lars Larsen Group. And our mission is bringing great Scandinavian for everyone within sleeping and living. And to be able to do so, we have 9 different product groups. Mattresses, duvets, bed linen, and sheets. We can say they are part of sleeping, and outdoor, indoor, homeware, home techs, window dressing, and bedroom, they are for the living. So we are operating with these 9 subgroups and then making sure that customers are getting the best offers every day. So as I mentioned, we have more than 3,000 stores. Like we have 2 concepts, you can say. 27 countries are operated from headquarters in Denmark, and we have 21 franchisee countries. They're like, we have a franchise department, but they are more or less kind of just buying the goods from us and then governing themselves. We are mostly in Europe, as you can see, and this year we will also open in Turkey as the 28th country, which will be operated from here. And when it comes to the stores operated from Denmark headquarters, like we have Germany as the biggest country in terms of number of stores. We have almost 1,000 stores, and Poland is next one with 284, and then you can see all the numbers. And if you want to, of course, know more about it, you can just go to jysk.com or individual country websites to learn more. So last year's result is like 36 billion Danish krona in turnover, which is roughly making 4.8 billion euros. And when it comes to EBIT, it's like 4.5 billion Danish krona, which is around like 615 million euros. Like in terms of turnover, we increased by around 11%, as you can see from the graph, but EBIT increased only 0.3%. But it's a growing business, and then we are opening stores every year, around like 150 stores. So we continue to grow. So that was a introduction to JYSK, and now introduction to our department. So like we are 6 people in the team. You just met me. Then we have 1 senior data scientist, 1 senior data analyst, and 2 data analysts, and a graduate. So our department, came to existence like 3 years ago, like 3.5 years ago. That came to be from a strategy process we had a couple of years back. An Accenture, a consultancy firm, was helping us, and there was this deep dive, as we call it, called increased sales through data. And after different workshops with them and internally, we decided that JYSK also needs to establish an advanced analytics department. And then we have a vision saying that we want to be one of the leading retailers within analytics and effectively applying analytics to improve customer experience and sales and profitability. So while doing these different workshops, we also used this analytic value escalator from a different consultant called Gartner. They kind of categorize different analytics into different boxes, you can say. Descriptive analytics is what happened, diagnostic is why did it happen, and predictive is, trying to guess what will happen, and then prescriptive is kind of a maybe simulation, how can we make it happen? So our department's main purpose, you can say, is to move JYSK on this escalator towards predictive and prescriptive analytics. So I brought the key ambitions and objectives, like which the first one is just what I maybe said, adding predictive and prescriptive analytics capabilities to JYSK. So applying advanced analytics to support data-driven decisions, and then also promoting being data-driven throughout the whole JYSK organization. And of course, we also have other objectives, but we also have this geographic information system, GIS system, to incorporate maps and locations to perform spatial analysis. That's kind of the JYSK's DNA. Part of JYSK DNA is expansion, as I mentioned, and then we also try to help that journey in our department. So, Sasha was mentioning that we have more than 40 projects. I brought a project overview of how many projects we done until now, and then although we want to add more predictive and prescriptive, you will see that most of the things we do are still descriptive, which is also fine if the business need is needing resolving by a descriptive analytics. We also perform that, but here in the overview I highlighted 6 in 2022, just showing that like last year we added 6 new predictive analysis to what we do in JYSK compared to the previous 2 years. It's just triple. So that's the number I like the most on this graph. Although we have 45 projects going, most important thing for us is to add more predictive and prescriptive. And we are still maybe chasing the first prescriptive, but we are working on a project now. Maybe in 23 we will also have one more row called prescriptive to show on our project overview. And among these 45 projects, I made a count. We are using Knime for either like just for data preparation or for full cycle in 40 of these projects. Like we are heavily using Knime, relying on it. And you can see also the other programs we use R and Python, and it's also good for us to combine maybe R and Python skills in Knime. So although maybe you are a Python person or R person, when you build a workflow in Knime, everyone can understand. Then of course there are other like VBA. Still some of the projects we still use VBA, although maybe we can convert them to Knime. So of course there are some legacy projects also going on. But I also wanted to talk about how we ended up selecting Knime when the department was built like 3 years ago. We had this analytic platform architecture in mind. So we have SAP HANA as an internal data source. So that's given, but all these boxes you can see here are components, or the components we thought we would need. One of the components is, for example, called this data hub and lake. which we also decided to do in SAP HANA. And we were looking for a solution which will cover these three components, like self-service data prep, machine learning development environment, and machine learning runtime environment. And there are also other components around to support this journey. But we did a vendor selection with proof of concept with different vendors, and at the end of the process, Knime server is selected. Now it's turning to Business Hub, but when we bought it, it's called Knime server. I guess still maybe being called both, but we selected Knime server as a tool. And during the process, we had actually 4 different vendors. One of them we chose not to continue even further, to proof of concept, so that you wouldn't see it here in the scoring. But I brought the scores and the what's called some of the insights I can share. Like I can't share everything, obviously, but at least I asked around which parts of it's okay to share, and these are the ones I could bring. Long story short, during the process, we ended up giving Knime a score of 76, and competitor 1 get 68, and competitor 2 get 48, right? But one of the questions we were asking also was, does a supplier fit into JYSK culture? And Knime got the highest score on that. And another maybe really important question was, we were asking within the team, do I see myself working with this team and supplier? And again, Knime got the highest score, and also service level agreement. We also liked the support we got during the proof of concept from Knime, the best compared to others. And also, we still rely on the support whenever we have a problem, and then we are still happy about that. So then this brings us to the self-service apps. So maybe it's a long introduction, but I hope that was also useful for some to know how we end up choosing Knime, how we end up being built, etc. So like in JYSK, we have now several different self-service apps, and they are being used by different departments, like sales and expansion, logistics, or also what's called purchasing, and then different departments, they end up using this self-service app. Of course, they are the ones asking it. But we also created a workflow for ourselves, another app actually, to see how many times these different apps are being used. So of course, we could have gotten maybe this from KnimeLog itself, but for us, it was much easier to build this piece of app for our sake to figure out, okay, which app is being used the most. With this way, we can see, of course, when an app is being not being used, and then we can contact the people who wished it in the first place. Is there a problem? Is there a bug? Or is just not needed anymore, so that we can drop it from the maintenance cycle. And we have been seeing an increase in the usage of these apps. We also built this dashboard. Like we started following up the usage since last March 22, although we had been building maybe apps longer than that. But since we started following up on this, we see that it's growing. It's usage is getting more and more. Of course, when the business side gets to know more about what we can deliver, what the Knime self-service app can deliver, they also ask for more, and then some of them are really, you can say, big hits, because they just solve a particular problem which is used by many, right? But we think that this trend will continue, because we are building more apps, and then the apps more being used more and more, right? One of the key elements I think we have is what we call shared components. While we are developing self-service apps or Knime workflows, we use these shared components. We develop them ourselves internally. So like we categorize them in 5 different, subfolders, you can say. And in each subfolder now we have like 5, 6, 7, like different number of shared components. And what do I mean by it is, like, we create a shared component when there's a need. Like if we want to use the same solution 5, 6, 7 times within the team, maybe it's a time to create a shared component. And whenever we do create this, we also add descriptions similar to native Knime notes, so that this way any team member who is not part of the creation of this component would know what to expect from the component. So I brought an example, like get last X month start and end date, right? And then you will see the description when you click on the component, when you put on your console. And this particular one does help us to find, as it says, last X months start and end dates. Like we had several cases when we were asked, okay, can you give us a report for last 3 months, or can you build this app for last 6 months, last X months? Then it was always a start over. Okay, let's figure out how to get those dates. But after a while, okay, we said now it's time for a component. Now it's really simple. You can configure it by right-clicking on it and then say month to deduct. Like in this case, I put an example as 2. Then it will find me, like I run this somewhere in February. So it will go back to the end of last month and go back 2 months now in this case to find the start date of those. So in this case, I can easily build a flow just using this start and end date in my upcoming nodes. So there are several of these examples. Like instead of, like, let's say figuring out this particular solution will take 20 minutes, and if you need to do it like 6 times in a month, then it's good to invest, like, I don't know, 1 hour to build this shared component. Then next workflows will be only 1 minute, 1 second when you want to use the same thing again. So I brought, of course, a couple of examples of the self-service apps. Like one of them is what we call Color Thief app. So in this one, users can upload an image, select which product areas and status codes that they want to see. Status codes, of course, the one internal status codes we have, and also the main groups they want to see. And they will end up getting a grid of articles with the same color. Right? In this app, we are using a Python in combination with Knime. So the uploaded image is breaking down to this most dominant colors by this Python package we have. And then we have another workflow pre-training the existing JYSK articles like once a month, so that when someone hits with a picture this app, we only need to get the 5 colors from the picture itself, and then we will easily, or now it's easy, of course, building up is a bit maybe trickier, we can easily bring up the same color-coded articles. And this helps our sales and expansion department when they want to promote articles, and if they want to make a nice page with color-coded, like if they want to make a brown page or green page or I don't know, any color, then they can upload an image, or they can just upload a 5 color, then they will get the list of articles. Of course, we want this to maybe improve a bit more and then make a customer facing app. So in that case, then we will ask customers to upload an image and then recommend them different JYSK articles to put in their living rooms, bedrooms, or whatever, right? Another app I brought is, as I mentioned, expansion is part of JYSK DNA. We are opening like 150, 200 stores each year. And in Advanced Analytics, we have been trying to help this journey. So we have built store revenue forecast for 2 countries until now, because we are building one more, and then there's a plan to build one more. And then based on, of course, the pace, we will continue building more and more. And in this case, modeling is done in R, and QGIS, the geospatial tool, you can say, is also used. But Knime is also part of it. Like I also brought up a kind of a diagram, like what do we do? Like we have the SAP HANA data source, then we have Knime as a data access and transformation, then we move to QGIS and R, and also we have OpenStreetMap to get some data. Then we are deploying on a virtual machine. But at the end of the day, we also build a self-service app for the end users to consume the model, right? So, and the self-service app is until now, as I said, just 2 countries, but the end user should select their country and give a name to their location, like test or Bilbao or whatever, and they need to give the coordinates of the store, and they need to also give their email address, because this takes a bit longer, like let's say 5 minutes. We don't want people maybe to wait on Knime web portal because it will take 5 minutes. Then it will be easier for them to just start and then get an email afterwards. An email is sent by Knime server in this case, and it looks like this. So all the selections they made, this is random coordinates, but what are the revenue forecasts we give? Like we are running 2 different algorithms in this case, but the most important part is the ensemble mean model for them. And then this is still, you can say, in progress. We probably will just end up showing one forecast, not to confuse the end users. So for them, it doesn't maybe matter where it comes, but what it matters is the revenue forecast. And the more countries we end up building as a model, we will continue adding them here as a selection. Then we will expand this Knime app to be serving more and more countries. So all in all, in advanced analytics department JYSK, we are using Knime in almost every project, as you can see, like 40 out of 45. By the way, those are the ones which are active, meaning that we had maybe, like, let's say double up, like maybe 40 more projects that we have tried or one time or just proof of concept and didn't continue. So we have many projects, and we almost always start with data access through Knime, and then we have been building two self-service apps. I only managed to show 2 of them, but like such as said, more than 12. I guess we are now close to 20 actually. So we are adding more and more, and then once you maybe get going, you get business getting used to this way of working, then they also see the benefit, and then they want more. Because normally what happens, or what happened also with us, was, take last year, they were asking for analysis, and then there's this waiting time. Like, let's say they shoot an email, and then 2 days, 3 days later, they might get the analysis back. But now they can just run some of the analysis themselves, which is really crucial for them, and then they just know what to do. We also explain in the apps what they are supposed to put. And of course, shared components are also really important part of how we use Knime. I would only encourage the other teams to do similar practice. Of course, if you are just using by yourself, it might also make sense to figure out what you had done to solve particular problem, but especially within the teams, creating a component and sharing them within the team is really important. So by that, it's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to try to answer some of the questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Erdem. That was such a great presentation. I love the color app picker, and I wish I had that for my own room and wardrobe.
Yes, I wish we can have that for customer facing, so that you can also use it. Right?
I'll wait for that one.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'd love to welcome up also Alex, who can answer any more specific Knime related questions. Hi, Alex. Oh.
Hi. Sorry.
It's all good. Okay, and one thing I failed to actually mention during my my introduction is that I talked a lot about the commercial product, the Knime Business Hub, and in his presentation, Erdem has been talking about Knime Server. Knime Server was the predecessor to Knime Business Hub. Knime Business Hub is freshly released, and it has all of the functionality of Knime Server plus a bunch more. So I think one of the first questions that I see coming up already is related to this: is the self-service app part of Knime Server? So maybe I'll shoot this over to Erdem first.
Yes, I mean, what we are using, of course, is Knime Server. I guess you need it, like maybe Alex can clarify afterwards, but we have the Knime web portal, which is together with Knime Server app. So what we are doing is basically deploying these apps on Knime Server for end users to be able to consume. If you are just using local computer, I guess you can't share with other end user. So you would need Knime Server, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you can build the data apps locally and you can test them, but once you shut down your computer, no one else has access to that app. So you need some central place where you can put it, and that's Knime Server.
Okay, and we have sort of like a follow-up question. Can you build the workflows without Knime Server? So I think that's what you were alluding to, Alex. Do you want to clarify what happens on Knime Analytics platform end and what happens on the Knime Server or Knime Business Hub end?
Mm-hmm. So basically, you design your workflows locally on Knime Analytics, in Knime Analytics platform, and you can test it out there. You can already see the views like they would look like on Knime Server, and then you upload that workflow to Knime server to both share it with your colleagues and also make it available to consumers who will not see the workflow at all, only the user interface that the workflow generates. And Knime server and Knime hub take care of user authentication, access control, and the likes.
Great. One question was about a specific, I think it's about one of the specific data apps. It was asked, what kind of model do you use for forecasting? And how do you deal with different holidays, days issues? Over to Erdem.
Yes, I mean, I guess in every maybe different problem, you will start trying to figure out which algorithm is the best, right? So then there is no maybe generic answer. So in the example I showed, the end result for the store revenue forecast, we ended up choosing random forest and a linear model with GLM basically, but we had tried 10 different algorithms. So then you need to try to figure out which one works the best, right? And when it comes to how to deal with holiday, that's always tricky. So we found a package, Python package, someone luckily maintains almost for all the countries we operate in. So then we are using that package, like with an API, get that package and then find the national holidays. And when it comes to JYSK stores, if a store is closed extraordinarily, of course we have that information internally, right? So then we consume internal holidays versus national holidays differently, you can say. And some national holidays might not affect JYSK stores. JYSK stores can still be open. Then it, of course, it give a maybe boost for the revenue, right? If that's the case. So basically, we use a public Python package. I guess when you Google it, you will also find it. It has everything except Bosnia, at least for our countries.
Great. And I think a follow-up to that sales forecasting question is, how do you do sales forecasting of thousands of items at one go? So I think that's a question of pre-processing or working with big data.
Yeah, I mean, what we end up doing in these two countries I mentioned is like we started with like 200 variables. Then we ended up adding more dummy variables along to process. But of course, at the end of the day, you maybe want to have the best model with the of course, maybe the minimum or least number of variables, if that's possible. Of course, I'm maybe talking to what's called contradicting things, but at least for us, it was important that we didn't end up with thousands of variables in the end model. We also wanted to be easily explainable to the end users, because then otherwise we would have lost them. So the one we built, the one I mentioned, the two countries, one of them is Netherlands. We started with, like as I said, 200 variables, but the end model is like 15 variables. So then you need to choose the best of them to make the model run as much accurate as possible. I don't know whether that's a good answer, but it's always tricky. So you might end up with a much bigger model, which is more explanatory or better accuracy. But if it's not something you can explain to the end user, then maybe they will lose interest, and then you will lose the chance to have a deployed model at the end of the day. So.
Great. So next we have a question about GDPR. So how do you manage data compliance issues like GDPR and geographic restrictions while using Knime? Is this managed within Knime, or does it need to be managed by a data architect?
I mean, I can maybe answer the JYSK part, and then Alex can take afterwards if there is a Knime related thing. I mean, GDPR is always an issue, and until now, what we did is not put anything to Knime server related to GDPR. So if there is a person needing GDPR related analysis, we do it not on Knime server. But that's of course not maybe a must, but that's a maybe way we chose at JYSK. So of course, there are of course the different data flags, you can say, who can reach to sensitive data, who can reach not sensitive data, etc. So like when you need to do like analysis for HR, then it's pretty sensitive, so you can't just do it. And when you put on what's called Knime server, what you can do, I guess, to limit that web portal app to one specific person who can consume it. But we didn't have any maybe use case that would demand that until now, and all the other analysis we took kind of on the site rather than putting on the Knime server for all the JYSK employees.
Great. And we have sort of like a, oh, actually before we move on to the next question, maybe Alex, do you want to add anything to that in terms of what the like technical accounts team recommends when this question comes up related to GDPR?
Well, yeah. So Knime server and Knime workflows are basically data processing workflows, right? They only store the data for a short amount of time while they are processing it, but it's not a storage engine. So the real GDPR issues are, where do I store my data? And this is separate from the Knime server, which stores workflows mostly and not the actual data that the workflows run on. But that said, we do have a really nice extension for data anonymization, which could be used as well for anonymizing the data before doing actual analysis, and that could help in that case also.
Great, thank you so much, Alex. And a follow-up question about the actual functionality of the UI building. So someone's asking, like, does it actually support the building of the UX UI of the data app? So, for example, as what was seen with the example of the revenue forecasting, or was this done with another tool?
No, it's fully in Knime. Like, there are like these widgets, as they're called, and then we also have a couple of widget components, like shared components we built. So, for example, the sales org selection. Now we have a widget sales org component so that we can pull when we build a self-service app. Then we don't need to think again and again. But I guess there are, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 different at least existing widget nodes that you start with, like text widget or list widget, etc. Then we are using those, and it also helps a lot with the design. Like, there's a simple button on top. When you start using widgets, it comes helping you. How do you want to arrange your widgets, which is super helpful for us, because otherwise we would have spent so much time with CSS or HTML, or we would need to ask someone from IT to help us. But we don't. We just pull the widgets in and then decide on, okay, which should be first. Like in the example I had, sales was first. Then then you decide, okay, coordinates should be here, image should be here, and you also put a text widget to explain what's going on in the app. So yeah, short answer, yes, it helps quite a lot.
Great. Yeah, and I think after we wrap up this webinar and we send a follow-up, I can recommend some resources that show, like we've had on-demand webinars that guide you through making a data app. So we can just share that in the follow-up after this call. Okay, so let's see. There's some questions asking about shared component. So they're just trying to clarify how exactly it's being used. So let's say that historic data has changed some data transformation process. Wouldn't the user need to rerun that data and recreate the process of the Knime workflow for the end objective?
Yeah, I mean, like, how we use it is like we have monthly scheduled tasks, right? Then this get last X months component, I gave an example. Then I put it in my workflow with 1 month to deduct, and I'm finding always last month's start and end date. Then of course that component creates flow variables, which we are using in a DB connection to our data source. So data source is changing. We are using these shared components to put where clauses in that specific case to consume the data, rather than we don't save data within the shared component. It's just a helping tool to build up. Like if I have this, get last X months, and then I also have a shared component called select sales organization, then I can also select it and I can put them together and put into my DB query in that case, and then use those flow variables to get the correct data, right? In that sense, if it's a monthly run, then of course, if there's an extraordinary case that data source changed, then someone manually needs to go and run that workflow again. But 95% of the time, that data doesn't change, and then your monthly run is good. So,
and maybe to add to that, you can build Knime workflows to be robust to some data changes. So, for example, if a column is added, but you never use it in your workflow, that's fine. The workflow should still run fine. If a column drops out and you don't use it in any of your nodes, then that's also fine, until you use the column actually to do some calculation, then of course the workflow fails. And we do have some really nice validation nodes, though, a table validator node that can make sure that the data you're getting has a specific format and then fail early with a proper error message in the beginning, and then you know what to fix.
Great, thank you guys so much. I think that's just about all the questions that we have. I guess before we end the Q&A, is there any advice, Erdem, that maybe you have for the people here who maybe are interested in starting to build some of these data apps or productionize some of their analytic solutions?
Yeah, I mean, if you have never started Knime, as you said, Sasha, like it's free. So I was using Knime as pricing manager without having a Knime server to help some of the things I was doing without maybe scheduling them. So if you are running something on your Excel or some simple scripting, it's also nice to try before maybe thinking about data apps. But of course, when you already have Knime server, and then if you are having, I don't know, like requests, it's always tricky. Is it one-off or is it more than one time? Like I had a couple of cases where I had been asked maybe same thing 2-3 times, and on the third time I build a self-service app, right? So first time maybe doesn't need it because you will maybe end up spending more time trying to build the web app or data app, which never be used. But if people are asking constantly, and what does it mean constantly? For me, it's 3 times. For someone, it might be 2 times. Then you maybe want to build self-service app. But of course, having a monitoring helped quite a lot to us, because we had been publishing these apps. We didn't know for a while how much it has been used. Now we know, then we can tell people, okay, is there a problem? And most of the time when you nudge people, they say, no, we are happy, but we just forgot to use it. Then they start using it, right? So that in that case, if you start building maybe self-service apps, make sure that you also have a follow-up mechanism to know who is using them, or if they are being used. Right?
Great. Okay, thank you guys very much. It was a great presentation. Any questions that I see a couple quite specific questions about like HIPAA compliance and things like this. We'll make sure we'll follow up. I don't know if everyone is interested in those questions, but we'll make sure that we get them answered after the webinar. So Erdem, again, thank you so much. Great presentation. Alex,
thank you for having me.
Thank you as always. And we'll just spend a couple minutes wrapping things up. So first, I wanted to invite everybody on this call to our Knime Spring Summit. This happens every 6 months, and this year the Spring Summit is on-site in Berlin and online. Really recommend this. There's lots of talks similar to the one now, but there's also some that are more business-oriented, some that are more technical. There's workshops, there's presentations from the Knime team, and it's really just a great way to kind of get to know other people across industries or within your industry that are building these kinds of solutions. This is the ticketing. You can always, early tickets are available until March 15th, so hurry up and get those as soon as you can. Otherwise, if you want to just join us virtually, most of the program is available for free. So be sure to sign up. We'd love to see you there, or join us in the Berlin office. I'd love to meet some of you guys in person. And finally, if you have any specific questions about anything that you heard today, or if you want to learn how to build and deploy data apps, or if you have a broader question about the product offering, please get in touch. There's a contact us button in the bottom left. We'd love to hear from you. That's it from us. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the presentation.